Okay. Okay. So we left off on that quadratic equation problem, right? Is everybody okay with 4A? Did we have any questions on it? No? All right. I'm going to start by going over letter B. If you think that you're good and you do not need to listen to me talk about it, you just go ahead and solve it on your own and then come back and check with me. However, I will talk about it since it is the first problem that we're doing today. We'll kind of ease our way back into our pre-calc stuff. I'm going to distribute that x to everything over here. So I've got x squared plus 5x equals 13. And then I'm going to minus 13 to both sides. So remember with quadratic equations, you want to get, or quadratic formula, you need to get everything to one side. And you need it in order of ax squared plus bx plus c. So I've got a, b, and c right here. A is just going to be 1, b is going to be 5, and then c is going to be negative 13. That wasn't too hard to get it into that form. Now that it's in this form, I'm going to plug into my quadratic formula. I'm going to do x equals negative 5 plus or minus square root 5 squared minus 4 times 1 times negative 13, all over 2 times 1. All right, then you start simplifying. Negative 5 plus or minus 25 plus 4 times 13 is 12, 52, all over 2. And then I'm going to add inside that radical, and I got negative 5 plus or minus root 77 over 2. As much as I would like to simplify that root 77, I can't. And therefore, because I don't have a common factor in these 3 places, we can't simplify anymore. So this one was actually a pretty quick one and a pretty easy one because I have no more steps I need to do now. I'm done. Is everybody okay with that? Okay. Next one is already ready for us to go. It's already in my quadratic formula kind of setup. However, I need to, I've got this fraction that maybe kind of stresses me out. So let's identify A, B, and C. As tempting as it is, when you plug in that fraction, please don't make it a decimal. I promise it'll work out nicely in a second. So when I plug in, I've got x equals 7 plus or minus negative 7 squared minus 4 times 1 times 5 over 4, all over 2 times 1. 7 plus or minus negative 7 squared is 49. And then negative 4 times 1 times 5 fourths. The fourths cancel, so I've got minus 5. See, I told you it would work out nicely in a second. 49 minus 5 is going to be 44, so 7 plus or minus root 44 over 2. Root 44 does simplify, so I'm going to go put it off to the side, make my little factor tree. 2 and 22, and then that's 2 and 11, bless you. And so when I simplify it, it's going to be 2 root 11. So I've got x equals 7 plus or minus 2 root 11 over 2. All right. Now, can I simplify that, or is this done? It's done, right? Even though these two are the same, it has to be a common factor with that 7 as well, and it's not. So I cannot simplify here. This is as good as it gets. Everybody doing all right so far?
Yeah.
Okay. Before we go back and do number 3, we are going to stick with what we're on the page that we're on. We're going to do number 5. These say solve graphically with the calculator. So we've done some graphing and solving, so we're just going to do a little bit more practice with that. You may notice there's a few more different symbols. I'm just trying to kind of practice all the different things we can do on the calculator right out the gate. First thing I do want you to notice is that on letter A and C, I've got an expression on both sides of my equation. I've got something with an absolute value, and then I've got like a normal expression. In order to solve these, I'm going to put them in y1 and y2, and I'm going to find where they intersect. So if I have stuff on both sides of the equation, I'm just going to leave them there, and I'm going to find their intersection. I'm going to find the intersection. Okay. Now, if you look at B and D, those have everything on one side. They're already ready to be solved, ready to be plugged in. So I'm just going to put those in y1 And then I will simply find the zeros at that point. Do you guys see the difference on when we find the intersection and when we find the zeros? Okay. Now I'm gonna have you do this mostly on your own, but let's walk through how we find the absolute value on the calculator. So go ahead and get your calculator up. Get your calculator up. We're gonna go to y equals, and in order to get that absolute value that I've got in letter A, make sure you're in the y equals menu and press math. And then go over to the right one menu to the NUM menu. And then the first option should say ABS, which stands for absolute value. So we're gonna click that, and my calculator just pops up with absolute value symbols already. So again, if you missed that, I hit math, and then I went over to the right one, and then I press enter for my absolute value. Okay. And then you can write 2x minus 1 in there. Morning. I like your outfit. Thank you. And then I'll put my x2 and my y2, or x squared, excuse me, my y2. And now we're gonna go graph it. However, I'm on a funny window from when we were graphing yesterday. I can see it all, but I can't really see the intersection well. Remember, if you want to go to a normal window, I press zoom and then Z standard, zoom 6, and that gives you +10, -10 in both directions. Okay. And that's enough. It looks like my graph intersects at 2 places, so I'm going to find those intersections. So I'm going to go second trace intersect. Oop, I got an ad. Okay, at least I got the volume off before it was too loud. It actually looks really good. Remember that we've got 2 points of intersection, so cheat your way over to one or the other. So even if you're, say, first curve, second curve, you've got to be close to each 0 in order for it to count that. So I'm going to go, mine says left bound, right bound, so I'm going to go left bound of the farthest left intersection and then right bound. And the farthest left intersection I see is at -2.4. And then I'm gonna go find the other intersection, the one on the right, the one right about here. I'm gonna go second in trace intersect, and I'm gonna go left bound, probably about there, because I'm not really sure exactly where they touch. I'm gonna make sure I'm putting my curve like where they're separate, and it looks like it touches exactly at 0.4. Is everybody okay with that?
Are there always like good answers?
Not necessarily. So I think if you do the next one, I'm gonna do letter C because I just already see that one. I think that there's only one point of intersection. So you just have to look at the graph and see where does it make sense if and where they cross. So I'm gonna go to y equals and I'm gonna do the whole thing again. If you missed the absolute value or you forgot already, again, it's go to math. Go to the right to the NUM, and then it's that first option ABS. And I can write x plus 1. And then my second one, I'm just gonna put that 2x minus 3. And if you see, that's an absolute value, so it's a V shape and then just a normal line. So they only cross at 1 point. So I'm gonna go find that point of intersection. Second trace intersect, left bound, right bound. And that one's just at 4. Okay. The next 2 are zeros. All we're doing is plugging them in and seeing where they cross. This one, the A and C, we're finding the intersection, and then B and D, they're already solved out, so we're just gonna find the zeros on those. Anybody questions on A or C? Okay, if you need calculator help, I'm gonna walk around now. I'm gonna solve B and D as well. I think those are a little bit more self-explanatory. So if you have any questions, you can't see where they cross, please let me know. I'm here to help. Who needs calculator help? Millie? There you go. Right, what's it? Okay, are you okay with this one?
No. Okay, great. So you are on the intersect. So you've done everything right so far. Yours says first curve, so we're on the blue line, so that's fine. So we're gonna press enter. So you're on the first curve. Now it says we're on the second curve. That's fine. Press enter. And then yes, you can move your cursor close to where you can put the cross, or you can leave it anywhere and it'll be fine. It's close enough. Enter. And then it should be accepted for the cross. So why does it matter? Why does it matter? I want the X. Then let's look at those back in. Yeah, there's some. So you see that thing over there that there's a little bit of it, if you just shove yours in and it's gonna be. And so now see that there's 2 points with it, you need to move that closer to one of the others. So let's do this first. So move a little bit. Good. We will do that with zeros in a second. But right now these ain't curves. When you find an intersection, we want to make sure we're on the blue line. And then now we're on the red line, and you can tell this because it has a little red. Oh, that's good. Keep it back over there. And that's where let's go get that negative. Now we're gonna do the exact same thing, and we're gonna move the mouse into it.
This one.
We'll do this. Yep. You would say first person, you need to make sure that your cursor is on the line for one of them, and then on the P for the other one. So if you give it can you tell if you're on the line or you're on the V, okay, so press enter. And then now it should jump over. So that's good. What you get it from? And then next, you can close with your mouse there, you can press enter again. And then it should find them. The map and the calculator, they're really ethics with when they're doing something on their own, they want to make sure they're on both lines. Yeah, I don't care about the. Just like what we do, like they have a formula, I only get X, right? That's why I don't need. Nothing we want to say, nothing in P5 is on your quiz. Nothing in P5 is on your quiz. Okay, you're just on guess right now.
It's white.
You know, I think it's a little bit different than mine. Let's do it. So the second time.
0.84.
And so now we're on the blue line, so we're good, press enter. Now we're on the red line, press enter. Press enter.
How is this one getting across
A
the
little
way?
bit, and I'm not really sure what to do with that. It's not like the. This is your window. Oh, go to Zoom. And then number 6, big standard. Now does yours look more like mine? Yeah. Perfect, all right, let's put the other one. Cause this is left out, right out. So okay, so right after. And then so gonna take the third power, you can press that clear button and then 3. We're gonna only see how you have here the high. We need to do this right arrow to bring it back down. And then
Well, I did get that.
like, okay, now we're this is like, so you're already ready, because it equals 0. So left to right on means we want the mouse to be on the left side of the 0, and then we want the mouse to be on the right side of the 0 so that it goes in between. So right now you're to the left. Would you agree? So this mouse is on like it's like the 0 or the X is 0 back. Yes, my friends enter there. And then that's something right down, so now you just move your cursor, so when you need to strike it out, it's yours. It can be above, yes. It can be above the. And then press
The number of that.
And note that says yes, so then you can either. Move your mouse cursor down, but there doesn't. Press enter, and then it goes. Mine says you're putting. I think you might have missed, you're left or right one, yeah, must have gotten something.
Oh, yeah.
But all the other people good. You get. So it's not. It's like. Square root is second, and then your x squared. There you go. So basically, whatever is on that one. See, this is blue and there is numbers. That goes in that, it makes it. And then I like to make so much like once you learn it and then before you learn it, like how the hell know that? And then just write your x plus 3 in there and then press graph. And then now find that number. Let's do yours here. It's left down right.
So with the other one is.
I just took one I found out there. I guess. Okay, so your left, now press enter. Now it says right, so now move your, I bet that's what you do. Is it? Now press enter. Actually, unless that. No, mine is yeah, I guess so. I just did it. And then 0. Like, you can't find it because there's nothing to intersect. You have to do 0. Okay. You're not checking it because you just had done. How are we doing? Everyone okay on their calculator? You guys get your answers like I did? All right, we gotta get. What period we're in? Yeah, this is that. All right. That was all of the graphing calculator stuff we're gonna do right this second. We feeling okay about that? Quadratic formula? Morning. I like your outfit. Thank you. So I need to address it when you guys are too close, so. Okay, so we have done quadratic formula, we've done graphing, we've done square rooting both sides. The last way to solve quadratics is probably our least favorite, but we're gonna work through it together. It's our complete the square, okay? And that's the one that we skipped. So I need you to come back, we're gonna go back to number 3. We're going to complete the square here. Okay. So what I've got is this equation. I know it's kind of light on your packet, so you may need to rewrite it. All right, complete the square. I know you've done it before. I'm going to act like you haven't. Okay, does that seem fair? Yeah. Perfect. Perfect. I'm going to assume you have never seen it before. Okay. What I want you to do first is I want the constant to move to the right side. So I only want x's on the left and I want any constants on the right. So I've got x squared minus 8x and I'm going to put a blank.
is equal to -12. I had to move that 12 to the other side, so I minus 12 from both sides, and now I have it on the right. I've got a blank on both sides because remember that in order for equations to stay equal, to stay true, whatever we do to one side, you have to do to the other side, okay? This is where the actual completing the square comes in. I'm gonna do b divided by 2 squared. What's my b? Good, -8. I don't want any x, I just want the number with it, so I'm gonna go over to the side, I'm gonna do -8 divided by 2 squared. That is gonna be what I add to both sides of my equation. Plus 16 plus 16. Again, what you do to one side, you must do to the other side. The reason we call this complete the square is now this x squared minus 8x plus 16 should be a perfect square. You should be able to write it as x plus or minus something squared. So what would that be? -4. -4 squared is 16, and then -4 plus -4 is -8. So I can rewrite x squared minus 8x plus 16 as x minus 4 squared, and then that's going to be equal to the other side of the equation, which is just 4. Okay.
Why is it 4?
Negative 12 plus 16.
Oh. I mean, like inside the parentheses.
Oh, inside the parentheses. Okay. -4 is the number that is what squares to be 16, and what adds to be -8. So that is the factored form of x squared minus 8x plus 16. If I were to multiply this out, -x minus 4, x minus 4, I should get that right there. Okay. All right. All right, now what I need to do is I have to solve for x. This is a solving problem. So in order to solve for x, I'm going to start by getting rid of that square and square rooting both sides. That gives me x minus 4 on the left side, and it gives me plus or minus 2 on the right side. Remember, anytime we do the square root, we have to make that a plus or minus. Now I have to solve this equation one of two ways. I have to do x minus 4 equals +2, and I also have to do x minus 4 equals -2. +4 plus 4, x equals 6, +4 plus 4, x equals 2. Those are our answers. Again, we moved the constant to the right-hand side. We did b divided by 2 squared. We factored, and then we square rooted and we solved. Okay. Can we do another one just like it? We're going to do 3 more just like it. This problem says x squared plus 4x minus 2. If that's not what yours says, make sure that that's what you have written. So I'm going to do the same thing. Again, I'm going to move my constant to the right. X squared plus 4x blank equals 2 blank. Now I'm going to do my b divided by 2 squared, which in this case it's 4. 4 divided by 2 squared is going to be 4. So I get to add 4, not just to the left, but to both sides. Everybody with me so far? Okay. Now this is where we factor it down. So I can factor down x plus 4x plus 4 to be x plus or minus something squared. 2, very good. Positive or negative? Awesome, you guys are killing it. And then 2 plus 4 on the right side becomes 6. Now we have a simple equation to solve. We're going to get that x by itself, so square root both sides. I'm going to get x plus 2 equals plus or minus root 6. Please don't make that a decimal. Please keep it as a radical. And then I'm going to minus 2 both sides, and I get x equals -2 plus or minus root 6. I actually like it when it goes like this because I have no more solving to do. That's as good as it is. You can leave it just like that. Okay. Go ahead and flip your paper over. And for right now, we're actually going to skip C and we're going to do D first. Why do you think I want to do D first? I can factor it out with that 3, right? Could we factor letter C with a common factor? No, so we're gonna have to work a little harder on letter C. But on this one, we could divide everything by 3, and then we just don't even have to worry about it anymore. So that gets me x squared equals 3x plus 4. Again, we need to get the constant on the right and all the x's on the left, so I'm gonna minus 3x from both sides, so I get x squared minus 3x equals 4. Oh, I'm gonna have some blanks in there, or else I might forget what I'm doing. Okay, now when I do b divided by 2 squared, what's my b? -3, good. This is how this gets a little bit harder than the last one, and I know that you might be tempted to make it a decimal. Please, please, please don't make it a decimal, leave it as a fraction. When I do -3 divided by 2 squared, that becomes 9/4. So I'm gonna add 9/4 to both sides. Everybody okay so far? Okay. Now is where I do my factoring step. And I'm gonna be honest, I struggle sometimes with those fractions. I have a hard time knowing what number goes in there. Does anyone think they know right now? -3/2. How'd you know that, Macy?
Because that's what you squared it.
Good. And that's the hint I was about to give you. If you struggle knowing how to factor it, whatever b divided by 2 is what goes in the factored form. That's true up here as well. When I did b divided by 2 and got 2, that's what was in my parentheses for my factor. Same thing on this one, and I did b divided by 2, I got -4, that's what went into my factored. So if you struggle knowing what happens for my factored form, it's just b divided by 2. And that is helpful on ones like this with that fraction. And now I know that you might not want to, but again, I argue keep it as a fraction, it's gonna work out in a minute. 4 is the same thing as 16/4, so 9/4 plus 16/4 is 25/4. Okay, let me actually kind of move over here. When I square root both sides, I can square root that 25/4. I get x minus 3/2 equals plus or minus 5/2. Square root of 25/4 is going to be plus or minus 5/2. And then again, we need to solve both equations. We need to do x minus 3/2 equals positive 5/2, and we need to do x minus 3/2 equals negative 5/2. So I'm gonna add 3/2 to both sides, so I get x equals 8/2, which is 4. And I'm gonna add 3/2 to both sides, and that gives me -2/2, which is -1. All right, questions, comments, concerns? Okay, let's look at letter number C, letter C. This one seems hard. I promise once we simplify it, it won't be that tough, but I do want to do one where we have a coefficient in front that we can't factor out. Okay, we always start by moving your constant to the other side. So I've got 2x squared minus 4x blank equals -3 blank. Before I can do my b divided by 2 squared, I do want to factor that 2 out of the left side. So I'm going to take a 2 out of everything on the left side. It does not touch the -3 on the other side of the equation. It gets me x squared minus 2x with my blank inside there. You guys good with that so far? Now my b is this -2, so I'm going to do -2 divided by 2 squared. So that gets me -1, which is +1. Now I'm gonna add +1 on the left side. I am not gonna add +1 on the right side. Do you know what I'm gonna put on the right side? Why?
Because you.
Technically, I didn't just add 1 to the left side, I did 2 times 1. So I'm gonna have to add 2 to the right side in order for my equation to stay balanced. Is everyone okay with that? I have 2 times 1, so I didn't just add 1 to the left side, I did 2 times 1. which means I have to add 2 to the right. Okay, now I want to simplify it. I'm going to factor it out. So I've got 2. It's going to be x what squared? -1. And then I've got -1 on that side. All right. Let's divide, let's square root. I got x -1 squared equals -1/2. Square root both sides. Ooh, what's -1/2 square rooted? That's kind of funky, right? Do you know what happens when we have a negative under our radical? I, very good. Plus or minus I root 1/2. And then we've got to add 1 to all of that. So technically I'll put my answer over here. X equals 1 plus or minus I root 1/2. And because I believe it's my job as your math teacher to teach you the best math way, radical of 1/2 is not the best. We would like to rationalize that denominator. It should be 1 plus or minus I root 2 over 2. Say that again. Sorry, did I hear another question? Great question. That root 2 on the bottom, you cannot have a radical in the denominator. So basically I've got root 1 over root 2. So to get rid of it, we're going to multiply by root 2 on top and bottom. We doing okay with that? All right. Let's flip our paper over and we're actually going to keep it rolling with our complete the square, okay? We're going to skip those word problems for right now. We're going to jump down to the ones that say find the center and radius of, because these are more complete the square. And since our brain is already on complete the square, I just want to stay in the complete the square part of my brain, right? Let's not jump around if we don't have to. Okay. Find the center and radius of these equations. What we're looking at are circle equations, and we want to get it in the general, the basic circle equation. If you remember from a lesson or two ago, we learned that the equation of a circle is x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. We're on number 7, so flip your paper over. Sorry, I know I'm jumping around for you guys. Is everybody with me? Ian, you're not convinced? Flip it back one more.
Percent.
Good, we just finished this page, we are number, oh. Not even good. Some of that helped it. Oh, let me see if I got another page.
I did not know. I was so confused.
I was like, I know he's smarter than this. You know, every so often I'm like, I know that they can do this, and then I walk around like, oh no. That one is not your fault. So you can even just clear this page if you want, but that's right, that's what we're. Okay, so this is my equation of the circle, you guys remember that? What we have here is we have to complete the square in order to get it into that form, okay? The only more difficult thing maybe than what we were doing is I have x's and I have y, so I've got to treat them separately, okay? When I start, let's get our x's next to each other, let's get our y's next to each other, and let's make sure any constant is on the right side, just like we've set up all my other ones. So we'll start by moving our x's so they're next to each other. X squared minus 8x, and I love a blank. Then we'll do our y's, plus y squared plus 10y blank. And then that's going to be equal to 5. And then we're going to have 2 blanks. We're going to have a blank from my x, and we're going to have a blank from my y. So I've got a little color coding going on. I've got 2 complete the squares that we need to do here. We got to do the x's, and then we've got to do the y's. So let's do our x's first. My b here is -8, so I'm going to do -8 divided by 2 squared. So that's going to be -4 squared, which is 16. So I'm going to add 16 to both sides of my equation. Once you've done your x, now we're going to do our y. My b for my y is 10. So 10 divided by 2 squared. 25. So I'm gonna add 25 to both sides. You guys with me so far? Okay. Now we're gonna factor each accordingly. We're gonna do our x first. So we're gonna factor that out. So it'll be x plus or minus something squared. What number goes there? -4, good. And then we're gonna do our y's. It's gonna be y plus or minus something squared. What goes there? +5. Good, and then that's gonna equal when I combine everything on the right-hand side. 46, good. Okay. Do you see how now I'm in that form of that y or x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared? Could you figure out what my center is? Good, for -5. Why are the signs switched? Because essentially you said equal to 0. That's how the equation goes. Our center is always h comma k, so it's opposite signs. Good. And then now we gotta do our radius. What's our radius gonna be here? Square root 46. Can we simplify square root of 46?
No.
No, I kind of wish we could, but we can't. That wasn't too bad, was it? Kind of a lot, but it's usually generally pretty simple numbers, okay? Let's do the next one. I will work it out, but I'm gonna be quiet, so if you wanna try it on your own, you can just look up and check in with me, but you can see how well you can do it by yourself. All right, how are we doing with that? You guys doing good? Okay, awesome. We got 2 more problems that I want to try and get done today. We are not going to do number 61 of the book problems, but we are going to do 59 and 60. So I have them up here on the board right now, but if you want to get out your little word problem page to kind of follow along with me. These are both graphing calculator problems, so don't have your graphing calculator put up yet. All right, the first problem that we're going to look at in our word problems, it says several of the World Cup '94 soccer matches were played at Stanford University Stadium in Menlo Park, California. The field is 30 yards longer than it is wide, and the area of the field is 8,800 yards square. What's the dimensions of the soccer field? All right, just like I tell my geometry kids, if you don't know what's going on or if there's no picture, draw yourself a picture, right? What kind of picture am I going to draw? A rectangle, right? A soccer field. I'm going to draw a little rectangle. Maybe if nobody wants to help me out. It says that the field is 30 yards longer than it is wide. Okay, so I'm going to use the variable W for wide for my width. And then it says it's 30 yards longer than it's wide. So what am I gonna write as my length? Good, W plus 30. If you hate using W, you can use X. I don't know what my width is, and I know that my length is 30 yards longer than my width. And then my area is 1,800 square yards. Now we have to solve for W. What's the area formula for a rectangle? Length times width, right? What's my area for this case? 8,800. What's my length for this case? W plus 30. What's my width for this case? W. Good. We want to solve. Now, could you solve this algebraically by hand? For sure. You know what's easier and a little bit faster? Putting it in the calculator. We're going to plug this in for my Y1. We're going to plug this in for my Y2. And we're going to see where they intersect with each other. We are going to have to mess around with windows. But the equations are pretty easy to put in. 8,800 is going to be one of my Y's. And then W times W plus 30. You can even keep it with the parentheses. You can distribute it if that makes you happy. Or you can just leave it as X plus 30 times X or X times X plus 30. Does not matter to me. This is what I've got in my Y equals. Is everybody okay with that? Okay. Now I'm going to go to, before I press graph, I'm going to go to my window. When we're talking real life situation, I do not need any negative numbers. So my X min is going to be 0. My Y min is going to be 0. There's no such thing as a negative length or a negative width for this place. Now my X max is going to be a little bit funny. I don't really know how wide the field is going to be or how long the field is going to be. I am going to use some just like common sense. It's probably going to be closer to 100 than it is 10, right? So I'm going to put in 100. We know a football field goes 100 yards, so I'm going to guess 100 is probably not a bad bet. Now for my Y max, I need to at least hit 8,800. I'm probably going to go 10,000 just so I definitely can see it. Just so I can definitely see it. Okay, I'm ready to graph. Oh, perfect. All right, we've got it. We're going to do our intersection. So second trace intersect. I've got left bound, I've got right bound, and I've got my intersection is at 80. Most of you will say first curve, second curve. Just make sure you're on the blue line and then the red line. And my W is 80. Let me help you with that. What's my length going to be then? No line change. Okay, if that when you did your okay, you can't see it, so I would keep going. Let's go to window. No, that actually, we're going to 30, it means we're gonna actually answer the. So you need parentheses, so I'm gonna press that and insert parentheses, and then I'm gonna put parentheses. What's my length? 110. Very good. How'd you get 110? 30 to 80. Good. The last one is another quick calculator one, so kind of stick with me for this last one. It's talking about this ladder is 18 feet and it needs to be X feet away from the bottom of the building and X plus 5 feet from the top of the building. I've got this triangle here. I'm going to use Pythagorean theorem. You guys remember Pythagorean theorem? A squared plus B squared equals C squared. What's my C? That's the only one that really matters. Is it X, X plus 5, or 18? 18. Why the 18, Chase? It's always the hypotenuse. X and X plus 5 will go in for my A and my B, so I'll do X, and then X plus 5, all in parentheses, equals 18 squared. And then in order to find this, we're just going to go immediately graph it as well. So I've got one of them is going to be my Y1, one of them is going to be my Y2. If it makes you happy to simplify any of this out, go for it. You don't have to though. You can write 18 squared in your calculator. So for my Y1, I'm going to put X squared plus x plus 5 squared. Didn't do any of that right. And then I'm gonna have 18 squared. Okay. Ooh, my window's a little too tall for this. So my window, let's bring it down to, I don't know, maybe 200. Oh, that's not big enough. Oh, it at least needs to be 300 something. Okay, that's my bad. I would say 500 is definitely gonna be big enough. There we go.
Is that?
My window, my X max I kept the same at 100, and then my Y max I made 500. And then we should be able to find our intersection here. And it's at 9.97. I'm gonna round that up to 10. The last two were a little rushed. We were just scrapping those intersections. Your p.5 homework is due next time I see you, which is tomorrow. And you have a quiz tomorrow. It's just on p3 and p4. Nothing from p5 made it on the quiz. Nothing, no quadratics, no nothing.